My father-in-law, Robert, raised his glass at my promotion party. To Ethan, his voice boomed. May he finally launch something more successful than his marriage to my daughter, which frankly is still in a very low, unstable trajectory. I smiled, clinked my glass to his. Speaking of unstable trajectories, Robert, I said, my voice even, your last real estate venture experienced a rather rapid, unscheduled disassembly. I hear. A litho-breaking event? Robert choked, face instantly crimson, his humiliation echoing louder than his insult. The sting of Robert's public barb amplified by Eleanor, my mother-in-law's smug smile, was a surface-level impact. The real payload was the sudden clarity. This wasn't just disapproval, this was sabotage, a deliberate attempt to destabilize me at a moment of professional triumph. My mind, trained for anomaly detection in complex systems, immediately flagged their coordinated malice. It was a well-orchestrated burn designed for maximum public humiliation. I saw Chloe, my wife, flinch, her eyes darting between me and her parents, a familiar look of trapped pain. The immediate aftermath was a blur of forced pleasantries and a quick exit. The celebratory champagne tasted like ash. My promotion to lead systems engineer on the Ares VI Mars mission, a lifelong dream, suddenly felt like it was orbiting under a hostile sky. This wasn't new, just escalated. The warning signs had been there, blinking like faulty telemetry. 3 stick in my mind. First, the constant undermining of my career. Still playing with rockets, Ethan. Robert would sneer during family dinners, while Eleanor would sigh dramatically. Oh, Chloe, I do hope he finds something safer, more grounded. Aerospace engineering, a field pushing human boundaries, was to them a childish fancy compared to Robert's concrete and steel empire. Second, Eleanor's relentless attempts to upgrade. Chloe's life choices, implying I was a regrettable detour. She'd conspicuously mail Chloe brochures for luxury condos near them, or tag her in posts about eligible bachelors from their social set. Third, the accidental exclusions family photos I wasn't in, crucial family discussions I was only told about later. Looking back at tonight, Eleanor's prep was obvious. She'd insisted on hosting the party at their club, not our home. And she'd meticulously curated the guest list, ensuring a high concentration of her society friends, the perfect audience for Robert's planned takedown. Robert's toast wasn't spontaneous, it was a pre-calculated payload delivery. Chloe and I met 7 years ago at a university alumni event. I was a young engineer, passionate about space exploration. She was a brilliant graphic designer, radiating warmth and creativity. We talked for hours that night about celestial mechanics and color theory, dreams big and small. It was a perfect orbital insertion. We married 2 years later, a simple ceremony, just us and a few close friends. The early years were our golden age, weekends exploring national parks, late nights discussing our projects, her designs, my mission parameters. We built our own little world, a stable Lagrange point amidst the universe's chaos. One evening, under a canopy of stars during a meteor shower, I proposed. She'd said yes before I even finished the sentence, her eyes reflecting the cosmic display above. That memory was a safe mode. I often rebooted to when her parents' interference became too intense. My background was starkly different from the Vances. I came from a family of educators and scientists. Intellect and integrity were our currency. Robert Vance was new money, a developer who valued square footage over substance, and Eleanor was his meticulously polished mission patch, obsessed with social strata. Our values were on divergent trajectories from the start. To them, my NASA-affiliated work, while vaguely impressive to outsiders, didn't translate into the tangible wealth they understood. Engineers are a dime a dozen, Robert once declared. But a man who can develop a whole city block, that's power. Chloe and I lived in a modest but comfortable house, prioritizing experiences over extravagance. This, in Eleanor's eyes, was a catastrophic failure to launch for her daughter. Details like my choosing a practical sedan over a luxury SUV, or our preference for intellectually stimulating documentaries over reality TV, were all meticulously logged by Eleanor as system failures in my suitability as a son-in-law. Their attempts to create a rift between Chloe and me were relentless. Eleanor would call Chloe daily, subtly planting seeds of doubt. Are you sure Ethan's happy with your focus on your art, dear? Men like him with such demanding jobs, well, implying I was neglectful or unsupportive. Then there was the time Robert accidentally CC'd me on an email to Chloe suggesting she see a financial advisor, just to ensure her future security since Ethan's government-adjacent salary, you know. It was a clear course correction attempt. Another incident involved Eleanor gifting Chloe a membership to an exclusive social club I wouldn't be comfortable in, saying you need your own space, darling away from all that technical talk. Robert's verbal assault at the party wasn't just an insult, it was the main engine cut-off moment for any pretense of civility. This was a direct hit, aimed at my professional core and by extension my marriage. They wanted Chloe to see me as a failed mission. The Monday after the party, my anger had cooled into a focused resolve, much like preparing for a critical design review. My engineering brain kicked in. I needed data, irrefutable evidence. Robert's toast was the initiating event. I started by subtly questioning a few trusted colleagues who attended, not about the Vances, but about the general atmosphere, any overheard conversations. An older mentor mentioned seeing Eleanor and Robert in a hushed, intense conversation with a known gossip columnist just before the toast. Looked like a pre-flight briefing, he'd quipped. This was my first breadcrumb potential collusion. My next step was a systems analysis of Eleanor's digital footprint. She was prolific on social media. I found a pattern posts subtly demeaning Chloe's previous, less suitable, boyfriends, praising those from wealthy families. This suggested a modus operandi. The third piece came from Chloe herself unintentionally. She tearfully recounted how Eleanor had, for weeks, been saying things like, "Ethan needs to understand the pressures of our world, Chloe." Perhaps a little public reminder of expectations. It was an admission of premeditated psychological warfare, Eleanor preparing Chloe for the incoming shockwave. I hit a small snag when trying to access club security footage, thinking it might have caught their earlier huddle. Privacy rules were ironclad. But these 3 points showed a clear mission profile of manipulation. I confided in Marcus Bell, my closest colleague, a brilliant software engineer with a mind like a deep space network, connecting disparate data points. We were in the lab reviewing telemetry from a recent satellite deployment. I laid out the situation, the public humiliation, the history of slights, my suspicions. Marcus listened, his usual jovial expression replaced by a frown. "Man, that's not just bad manners, Ethan. That's a targeted attack vector," he said, his anger palpable. "My ex-wife's parents were like that. Subtle digs, constant comparisons. They're trying to achieve ego capture on Chloe." He then offered something invaluable. "My cousin works for a private investigator. She owes me a favor. Can't do anything official, but she can run discreet background checks, look for financial red flags, public records stuff that might show a pattern of aggressive social maneuvering, ethically, of course." This was a critical assist maneuver I hadn't anticipated. Marcus's cousin, a quiet, observant woman named Sarah, was a godsend. She uncovered details about Robert's more aggressive business dealings, a few hushed-up lawsuits where he'd strong-armed partners. More significantly, she found records of Eleanor making sizable, undeclared gifts to a small, struggling local newspaper, the same one that occasionally published fawning pieces about the Vance family and, suspiciously, disparaging anonymous rumors about people who had crossed them. The core evidence, however, came from an unexpected source. Chloe's younger cousin Liam, who had always been a bit of an outcast in the Vance clan and quietly admired me, contacted me. He'd overheard a furious argument between Eleanor and Robert after the party. Eleanor was berating Robert not for the insult, but because my quick retort had made him look foolish. "You were supposed to diminish him, Robert, not get bested by a slide rule jockey." Liam had on impulse recorded part of it on his phone. The audio was crackly but clear, Eleanor's voice, laced with venom, discussing how this engineer needs to be put in his place, once and for all, and referencing previous successful re-trajectories with Chloe's unsuitable partners. This was my smoking gun, undeniable proof of malice and a history of interference. The weight of it hit me, the cold, calculated cruelty. But alongside the anger was a steely determination. My mission parameters were now clear. The initial shock of hearing Eleanor's unfiltered contempt on that recording gave way to a cold, methodical anger. This wasn't just about a distasteful toast. This was a sustained burn, intended to systematically dismantle my marriage. I began to formulate a strategy. My engineering training emphasized fault tolerance, building systems that can withstand failures. My marriage needed its own redundancy systems against their attacks. I considered several flight plans, a direct, angry confrontations, high risk, low probability of success, or a more calculated evidence-based approach. I chose the latter. This wasn't about revenge, it was about trajectory correction for our lives. With the audio recording and Sarah's findings forming a solid evidence package, I began meticulous preparations. I created encrypted backups, logged every past incident I could recall with dates and contexts, much like a mission log. I rehearsed various scenarios in my head, their denials, their attempts to gaslight Chloe. I needed to present the information to Chloe in a way that wouldn't overwhelm her, but would clearly illustrate the systemic failure of her parents' behavior. The launch window for this would have to be chosen carefully. Marcus, ever the pragmatist, helped me play the difficult conversations. Remember, Ethan, data trumps emotion with people like that, and with Chloe, lead with empathy but don't dilute the facts. Choosing the right moment to talk to Chloe was mission critical. One evening, after a particularly draining day where Eleanor had called Chloe 3 times with unsolicited advice about our finances, I decided it was time. I sat her down, not in anger but with a somber resolve. "Chloe, we need to talk about your parents." I started by recounting Robert's toast, her pained reaction. Then, gently, I introduced the concept of a pattern, showing her Eleanor's curated social media history. Her initial reaction was defensive, tears welling. "They're just old-fashioned Ethan. They worry." Then I played a small, less damning snippet of Liam's audio, Eleanor complaining about my lack of ambition. Chloe paled. "That sounds like her." Over the next hour, I carefully laid out more pieces, never attacking, just presenting facts, the financial gifs, to the local paper, followed by negative articles about her ex, Dr. Alan Davis. After their breakup, I saw the dawning realization in her eyes. The pain was immense, but so was a flicker of anger. Finally, I played the most damaging part of the audio, where Eleanor explicitly talked about managing Chloe's partners. Chloe broke down, a deep, shuddering sob. How could she? She whispered. I held her, letting her process. By the end of the night, through tears and disbelief, Chloe's inherent fairness and love for me cut through years of her mother's signal interference. She was horrified, heartbroken, but her eyes held a new firmness. What do we do? She asked. She was on board. I explained to Chloe that simply confronting them wouldn't work. They were masters of denial. We needed a comprehensive data package. Marcus's cousin Sarah, following the breadcrumb about Dr. Alan Davis, Chloe's cardiologist ex-fiancé, discreetly reached out to him. Initially hesitant, Alan eventually agreed to speak once he understood we weren't looking to dredge up his pain, but to stop a pattern. He provided old emails where Eleanor had subtly insinuated to Chloe that Alan was being unfaithful, a complete fabrication, which ultimately led to their breakup. This was a historical data point of immense value. I collated everything: Liam's audio, Sarah's financial traces, Alan's emails, a timeline of Eleanor's veiled threats, and Robert's condescending remarks. I even included printouts of the anonymous, negative articles about Alan that had mysteriously appeared in that small local paper right after Eleanor's gifts. Marcus helped me organize it into a clear, undeniable mission dossier. We decided to present this not in a shouting match, but more like a systems review, calm, factual, irrefutable. We'd also include Owen, Chloe's usually oblivious younger brother, and his wife Laura, who I suspected had also faced the Vance gravity well. The dossier painted a chilling picture. Eleanor, with Robert's tacit approval, had been running a long-term social engineering campaign. Her motive, absolute control, masked as maternal concern. She needed Chloe dependent, compliant, and married to someone who fit her definition of success, which I, with my aerospace career, clearly did not. Chloe remembered Eleanor's intense disapproval of Alan's long hours, his dedication to his medical career, how Eleanor had called it selfishness. It was the same playbook. She'd told Chloe Alan wasn't family material. The Vances viewed their children as assets, their marriages as strategic alliances. Anyone who threatened their perceived control or their carefully constructed family image became a target for orbital adjustment or, if necessary, deorbiting. The pain of this realization was profound for Chloe, a seismic system shock. We invited Eleanor, Robert, Owen, and Laura for dinner at our place, Neutral Territory. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension, like the quiet countdown before a critical maneuver. Eleanor tried to dominate the conversation with her usual social pronouncements, but Chloe, with a newfound quiet strength, guided the conversation. After dinner, I dimmed the lights and connected my laptop to the TV. There's something we all need to discuss, I said, my voice steady. Robert scoffed. More of your rocket science theories, Ethan. In a way, yes, I replied. It's about a system malfunction within this family. Robert started to bluster. I resent that implication. Eleanor chimed in. Ethan, if you have a problem, speak plainly. Don't hide behind jargon. Her voice was sharp, a preemptive strike. This was their standard denial protocol. Very well, I said. Let's review the data. I started with the audio of Eleanor's post-party rant. Her face froze. Robert blustered. That's taken out of context. Private conversation. I then showed the financial records of Eleanor's payments to the local newspaper, followed by the articles smearing Dr. Davis. Laura, Owen's wife, gasped. They did that with my brother too, when Owen first introduced us. Owen looked stunned, turning to Laura, then to his parents, confusion warring with a dawning horror. I then presented Alan Davis's emails, showing Eleanor's subtle poison. Each piece of evidence was a telemetry packet, painting an undeniable picture. The color drained from Eleanor's face. Robert's bluster faded into a stunned silence. Owen finally spoke, his voice trembling. Mom? Dad? Is this true? Laura added, her voice firm. We all remember the anonymous calls to my parents, questioning Owen's seriousness about me after that donation you made to their local charity auction, Eleanor. The collective evidence became a cascade failure for their denials. Eleanor looked cornered, her eyes darting around like a malfunctioning guidance system. Robert just stared, the arrogance finally cracking. Other family members, now emboldened, began to share their own suppressed stories of manipulation. The full extent of their meddling, a decade-long campaign of active interference, hung heavy in the room. Chloe, her voice thick with emotion but unwavering, spoke. This wasn't love or concern. This was control. You tried to design my life, my happiness, according to your specifications. You hurt people. You hurt me. You hurt Ethan. Eleanor finally crumpled, not with remorse, but with the dawning realization of a total loss of signal. Robert, for once, was speechless. The Vance family operating system had crashed. My role wasn't one of attack, but of presenting a clear, diagnostic report. The truth had its own undeniable gravity. The immediate post-mission debrief was stark. Eleanor and Robert were stripped of their manipulative power within the family. Their sanction was informal but absolute, a forced acknowledgement of their actions, though a genuine apology never came, a commitment to cease all interference, and severely restricted supervised contact with us and any future grandchildren. New protocols for communication were established by Chloe and Owen. No unsolicited advice, no manipulative gifting, no triangulating family members. The chain of command in our own lives was now firmly re-established. Chloe and I worked diligently to set clear boundaries. It was a course correction for our family dynamics. When Eleanor tried her old tactics, a tearful call to Chloe about feeling isolated, Chloe firmly reiterated the new rules. Mom, your actions have consequences. We need space, and we need you to respect our decisions. Robert attempted a goodwill gesture by offering me a high-paying but clearly manipulative executive position in one of his new ventures. I politely declined. Thank you, Robert, but my trajectory is set, and I'm very happy with it. These weren't easy conversations, but Chloe's unwavering support was my primary flight computer. We learned to deflect their attempts at emotional blackmail with calm, united refusals. Our home became a safe harbor, free from their turbulence. Our marriage, having weathered this critical stress test, emerged stronger, our orbital path more stable and aligned than ever. We rediscovered the joy in our shared life, now unburdened by external interference. Our conversations were lighter, our home filled with more laughter. Chloe's design work flourished, and my focus on the Ares the mission sharpened. We started planning for our own family, on our own terms, designing a life that was authentically ours, a mission plan for two. There were no more coded remarks about my salary or long hours, no more sly comparisons. We were free to define our own success parameters. A few months later, at a NASA gala celebrating recent mission successes, Robert and Eleanor were also present, invited through one of Robert's business connections. They kept a noticeable distance. During a brief, unavoidable encounter, Robert actually complimented my team's recent breakthrough on a new propulsion system. Heard you cracked that thruster problem, Ethan. Impressive. It wasn't warmth, but it was a grudging acknowledgement. Eleanor offered a tight, polite smile. This was their version of a white flag, a tacit admission that their old tactics were no longer viable mission options. It wasn't forgiveness, nor did I expect it. It was an understanding of new orbital mechanics. My victory wasn't in their defeat, but in our reclaimed autonomy, our family's nominal performance. The birth of our daughter Stella felt like launching the most beautiful satellite into orbit. The storm with the Vances had long since subsided, leaving behind a clearer sky. Eleanor and Robert were grandparents now, their interactions with Stella carefully managed by Chloe and me, guided by the established boundaries. They were more subdued, their attempts at control replaced by a hesitant, awkward affection. My inner guidance system had recalibrated. The anger was gone, replaced by a quiet system's nominal feeling. Looking back, the Vances hadn't changed fundamentally. They were still celestial bodies with their own strong gravitational pull. But Chloe and I had learned orbital mechanics. We understood their patterns, their failure modes, and, most importantly, we had established our own independent, stable orbit, powered by mutual respect and love. True strength, I realized, wasn't about outmaneuvering adversaries with complex countermeasures. It was about a nominal trajectory, living authentically, safeguarding your payload of loved ones and defining your own mission success, one carefully plotted coordinate at a time. That was the most advanced engineering of all.